So I'm guessing that there's probably some weekends where maybe on a Saturday night you're doing a wedding, playing Michael Jackson, and then Sunday morning you're playing, This I Believe, and
Yep.
That's fun.
That's pretty much the vibe.
What's up, community? This is Jansen.
And Derek.
And today's podcast episode, we are going to be featuring Mr. David Andrew from Hillsong. David is such a lighthearted guy, super funny, loves to just joke. He's Australian, which is extra awesome. Love his accent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he has just a wealth of knowledge about keyboard sounds, creating patches and presets. We'll talk about that stuff here in a little while, but we want to just kind of get to know David a little bit and to see, how he's doing and what his passions are, what he loves, and just kind of get a little more insight as to, what his world even looks like and how touring and all that stuff is going. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this episode featuring David Andrew.
All right, David, thanks so much for joining us on the Loop Community Podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We're so glad to have you with us. You are a very, very influential musician in the worship sound world and in the worship music world. And I know a lot of our community members are just so pumped to be able to hear just kind of more from your heart about what it's like to be playing with Hillsong and to be making sounds. And I'm sure you've got so many other different avenues of music you're doing as well. So I would love to just hear about those. And maybe to kick us off, can you just let us know where you're from, how you even got started playing music?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm originally from a small mining community in northwest Queensland called Mount Isa. Queensland is a state in Australia, as you do. And so started playing with a small, in a church team there. And in 2004 moved to Sydney and started attending Hillsong College. And then...
how old were you when you did that?
Yeah, I was 18.
Okay.
Around 18, yeah.
So you started playing how old were you when you started playing music?
When I was playing music, I would have been... maybe 12 when I started playing in the church team.
Wow. Okay, so you've been in church really your whole life. Yeah,
my whole life, which is really cool.
And, that is. You've probably seen it change a lot, and definitely the styles of music change.
Yeah. Oh, man. I remember when we did all the Daggy Hillsong songs.
Daggy? What does that even mean?
Daggy's like, it's a bit uncool, okay. And it's been... Right. Time doesn't look favorably upon it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Worthy as Lamb definitely does not fall in that category.
Exactly.
Man, well, that's awesome. So you've been in it for so long. And
yeah.
is there any other type of music you play, or is it mainly like worship music?
I've tried to keep myself quite eclectic as a musician. So, I do church stuff, but then I also play as a professional musician in the studio, which means you're across a bunch of genres. And then I also have like a live trio band of my own, which we kind of take pop tunes and rearrange them so they're a bit more dancey and a bit more just a bit more intelligent than just four chords.
Yeah.
So no, I mean I try and keep myself as, get across a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different styles and just a bunch of different disciplines as a musician. Because I think that's just honoring the gift that we have, is
right.
Trying to be as good as we can in as many different creative ways.
Definitely. Is there is there a place we can actually hear the ways that you've kind of changed some of these pop tunes?
Yeah, there's some stuff on there's some stuff on YouTube. So my trio is called the David Andrew Trio, which serves my ego quite well.
That's pretty awesome. It's like the John Mayer Trio.
Yeah, a little bit like that, except not as awesome as the King, John Mayer. Have you heard his new album?
The Search for Everything. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's like a return to form.
I know. I'm digging it. I've probably listened to it 10 times.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I'm really, really happy that he's released that album.
Still Feel Like Your Man. Such a good feel.
Just pocket for days.
I know, if you have to kind of just like sit and like really like close your eyes and listen to everything that's going on, like the bass lines that are in that song.
That's a heavy bass line.
Right.
Oh my gosh. That's a hard one to like. It's an easy one to kind of like lug, or it's an easy one to kind of play badly, but to play well, it's a hard tune.
Right. I originally thought that he was going to be releasing 4 songs every month for the whole year. So I was like, oh man, this is going to be amazing. We're going to get like 48 new John Mayer songs.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. What happened there?
I don't know. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, the whole album's out. I don't know. Maybe he got tired. Maybe it was hard doing 4 every month.
Maybe it was just hard,
Right.
Doing that for a living full time.
Right. Do you play any wedding gigs?
I play so many wedding gigs.
What's like the main wedding song in Australia?
Geez. I think Thinking Out Loud is still kind of the king of wedding songs.
Yeah.
Man, he knocked it out of the park with that one.
I know. And then do you still do like I Got a Feeling? I feel like everybody's doing that.
Oh, yes.
As the party advances a little longer, you jump into I Got a Feeling, and
it's all on.
That's fun though.
Michael Jackson, some Luther Vandross.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all happening.
It's fun that you're getting to do like, 2 totally different genres of music. So I'm guessing that there's probably some weekends where maybe on a Saturday night you're doing a wedding, playing Michael Jackson, and then Sunday morning you're playing, This I Believe, and
Yep.
That's fun.
That's pretty much the vibe.
Yeah. So do you guys with your trio, do you guys use tracks at all?
No, we don't use tracks. We've toyed with the idea of doing that, but I kind of run 2 keyboards, so the sound fills out really well. So rather than doing tracks, I kind of stack the keys, and it sounds like a full kind of synthy. Because everything is, everything on the radio at the moment is like just synthy. Guitars are kind of quiet. I think guitars are going to make their way back. Mm-hmm. I think guitars are going to come in. I think, every time you get a Republican president, you're going to get a resurgence of guitars.
Oh, man. That's good. It is really interesting. It's also interesting kind of hearing it from a guy at Hillsong, because, I don't know if you see this. I would guess you know this, but, it seems kind of like everybody in the worship world kind of just follows what Hillsong does next. And so I don't know if maybe like you're kind of hinting that maybe like, is that what you guys are doing over there in the future here? Because you're like, what, 18 hours ahead of us. So is in the future, are you guys playing guitars solos more than keyboard stuff?
There's a really comfortable balance, I think, within our team. And I think it's just the song. I think what happens with the song guides what happens. So we've never really gone, all right, guys, it's now guitar territory. All right, guys, it's going to be the synth. It's going to be the piano. So it's kind of our writing will determine kind of the style of what happens. And also, like, we're starting to get some really cool gear because Australia is so isolated, right? We don't have a sea of, like, really cool gear or really, the analog synths and stuff like that you can kind of find a lot more easier in places like the States or in Europe. So now kind of getting out there being a bit more global and starting to just along the way pick up really cool pieces of gear. That starts to influence the sounds of the record. The stuff that we get to play with influences the sound of the record. So it's not like we've gone out there and we've been real strategic about this is the sound of the record.
Right.
I think the songs come, and I think the gear that we get, that we start to play with, that we really enjoy, starts to shape what we do. It's a lot more organic than strategic.
Right.
So as far as like getting guitars back to their shred status again, I don't know. Maybe, I feel like Nigel would love that.
Right. Not there yet, though. So
Well, it depends who you ask.
Yeah. So what does your involvement with Hillsong look like?
So I think the best way you can describe what I do is I'm a volunteer. So I used to be on staff as working in the college as a trainer. Left that to pursue being a full-time creative professional, a full-time musician, and wanted to do more producing and wanted to do more writing and all that kind of stuff. So I left staff at church, but kind of started serving more and more with our creative team and had, the chance to contribute more. So I'd been playing on albums since, 2006. I've been on the Hillsong Live / Hillsong Worship live albums since 2006. But week in, week out, that looks like I get the chance to play with our teams at home, play on a Sunday, quite often get the chance to music direct, so which means that you're responsible for everything that goes on from the moment that people walk in the door until the moment that you hand it over to the preacher.
Wow.
So, I like to think of it as something falls down, if something goes wrong in the entire service,
yeah,
or you hand it to the preacher, that's your fault. That's on you.
Right.
And so the role of a music director is quite frighteningly large. And we have an amazing team. We work with, service producers, and we work with, people across a whole bunch of disciplines with TV and lighting and sound and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, a lot of the focus of how to achieve those things relies and rests on the music director chatting to the worship leader and service pastors. And, also we've got this role of a creative producer as well. So working in tandem with them to, just make sure that everything is done in a way which continues to point people towards Jesus and
right
off of our humanness on the stage.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's man. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we do. And part of the greatest team on the planet with some of the best people, and Cass and Rich Langton are just like some of the coolest leaders that you'll ever find. So have the honor to serve under them week in, week out, which is pretty amazing.
Man, it must be awesome. What you guys are doing is so, it's impacting so many churches. I've never actually been to Hillsong in Australia. I've been to Hillsong in London and New York City.
Oh, rad.
But I'm such a huge fan of what you guys are doing. And what does the songwriting culture look like? Or what does songwriting look like for you? Is it like a set kind of like, hey, we write songs on Tuesday, or is it just maybe you come up with something and then you pass it on to someone else in the church? Or
No, it's really funny. I had a chat with Ruben maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's Ruben Morgan, just in case.
Right.
Know who that Ruben character was. And it was I was so proud. I'm like, hey, Rubes, I'm really focusing on my songwriting, and I'm really, trying to work on my craft. And, so I'm every Friday I've got like 3 hours that I get to write, and that's what I get to do. And then I was so pumped about it. And he kind of just gave me this, he looked at me a little bit like you only write 1 day a week? It's like, oh.
Right.
It's like you should be writing every day. You should be writing 5-10 minutes every single day. 1 day a week isn't going to cut it for you. And if you don't have the time, just be writing a small amount every single day. And so as far as that's kind of the culture of the skill and the discipline of songwriting is, there's a really high expectation. And to be honest, we're a part of Hillsong Church, which is this song's hub for the church.
Right.
Which can at times be a little bit daunting. You're like,
oh yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
And you've got Crocker, and you got Fielding, and you got Brooke, and there's such a high concentration of insanely good writers.
Yeah. Right. You're just please rub off on me, please.
Please rub off on me. And then and also oh my gosh, everything that I write doesn't sound anything like what Ruben does. And it's,
right.
You kind of do the game of this is not great. But I think you know, I think that we have such a mandate on our church to be bringing the new song and bringing all that kind of, serving the church globally. That's part of it, kind of our DNA. So it's not just Ruben's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility to bring, to keep our craft sharp. Because I think the thing is, like, a good song's going to rise.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm confident that you can be a part of our church team, and be a writer and be a part of who we are. And I think that, the songs really have a way of coming out of the life of our church and the experience of our church and who we are as a group of people. The songs tend to be written out of that. I don't know. I mean, I guess we call it a heartbeat, out of this kind of the DNA and the imprint of our church and our team and our culture. And so songs that carry that of who we are and what God is doing among our team, and if they're good songs, they're just going to rise to the top.
Right.
So so we have a system in place, and we've got a lot of writers. We've got space on our campus for people to write, and especially people who are kind of connected with us. Cool spaces, and our publishing team and Hillsong Music and Shout are really doing great things to foster the artists and foster the writers and the creatives who are gifted in music and have a heart to write. And so really trying to provide opportunities and platforms and spaces for people to do that. So
it really is in your guys' DNA. It just seems like it's just what you do. Write songs for the church.
Yeah, and we're not perfect, but we're all just trying to, as best as we can, just trying to bring what we have to God.
Looptimus is the best USB MIDI foot controller for live performance. Designed for musicians who want hands-free control of their music software and hardware. Looptimus is plug and play and works seamlessly with Ableton Live, Mainstage, Logic, or any other MIDI-capable application. Send MIDI notes to control music software, or send program changes to select presets on guitar pedals and keyboards. Looptimus is the ultimate foot controller for live performance. Now available at looptimus.com.
For you, because I know it's probably different for every person, what hits you first? Is it melody? Is it lyrics?
It's a really hard one, because you don't want to box. Anything can happen. How do you write a song? Well, geez, I don't know. Maybe I saw a painting or something.
Right.
But
give me the three steps.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the danger. Is like, so how do you do it? It's like, well, no, that's not. There are no 3 steps. That has to be the first step. There are no 3 steps. And then step 2 is like, well, maybe sit down at a piano But so for me, it's been a process of, like, I think I'll sit down at a piano and I'll kind of write chords or play chords and write melodies and mumble kind of nonsense lyrics all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes they'll all come together. Sometimes you'll kind of get the fragment of lyric, and then you sit down but I often find that I sit down at a piano and I start to play a chord progression, and melodies and lyrics start to flow out.
Yeah.
But I find that, like, those ideas are very cheap and easy to have. Right. I think it's very easy to sit down at the piano and to, like, I could sit down at the piano and in the next 10 minutes write 3 songs, 3 like verse, chorus, bridge, melody, and lyric fragments.
Right.
But the hard part is then going, like, all right, let's now develop this into some coherent, some poetic, melodic sense.
That's how it is for me too.
Yeah.
I have the harder part on the lyrics, but I could sit down and come up with melodies and music all day.
Yeah, totally. That part's easy.
Yeah, totally. And then gluing it together though with a theme and lyrics is a little bit more challenging, and that's really where the obviously for worship that's pretty important. The depth, of the song. And the theme
theology is pretty,
right.
It's pretty important.
Pretty important, I would say.
Steering away from heresy is probably a good thing, I guess.
Right. So let's just change gears to a little bit more nerdy side. So when you're producing your own music, what do you use? Like, what do you use to actually produce and make music?
Good question. I'm constantly trying out new things. At the moment, I'm a little bit late to the bandwagon, but I'm learning Ableton as a way of producing music, not just as a way of like firing tracks and stuff like that. So learning how to produce from Ableton. Geez, what else?
Well, what was the one you used before you started using Ableton?
Well, I mean, I'm on Logic. I still use Logic.
Okay, cool.
I enjoy Pro Tools, but as far as being a musician and kind of getting right into the meat of what I want to do, I love Logic because it's just so intuitive and ready to go. And then I also know the process a lot better.
Yeah.
But I've been using, there's a website called Splice, which you sign up for, and rather than having, hard drives and hard drives of samples, Splice is a subscription service where you basically type in kind of what you're looking for, or, but then it's also got, you can search by genre, or you can search by tempo if it's a loop-based kind of a thing, or it's or the key of the song. It's pretty incredible. Like, it's this cataloged website with thousands upon thousands of samples that you can just go, oh, that's what I want to grab that, and then I pull a lot of that into my session. Plus then you find new cool sounds really quickly, which in a pop market, that's kind of your that's your bread and butter. Right. Yeah.
Interesting. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
And then when you're running tracks live, are you using Ableton Live?
Yeah, tracks live, is Ableton, just a really solid platform.
Yeah.
Especially for the fact that we, at church, we are constantly manipulating our tracks, constantly going, oh, why don't we try that? Oh, why don't we, finish over here? Let's change the key. Changing the key is like a constant thing.
Right.
Or for us, we start to do arrangements that are different. So like, oh, this one has the three bridges, but this one only has the two, and this one has this one's the two arrangement, or so they start to become, rather than like doing the Ableton dance and jumping around, they start to become full tracks by themselves.
I feel like it'd be hard to remember all that. Like which wait, are we doing the tour arrangement or the church arrangement or the
Oh, it's the story of my life. My favorite is, are we doing the remix or the acoustic remix or the
or the
remix or the reimagined remix or the classic? Which one are we doing now?
Yeah.
Panicked questions that the MD asks.
Oh yeah. Are we doing the United version of Oceans or the Hillsong Worship version of Oceans?
Yeah, and then I think also the extra layer is like different worship leaders will have, their preferred way of doing things. So if it's like the United guys, then they'll probably want the United tour version. But if it's like the worship guys, then they'll probably want the worship, the worship tour version. And so it's like, trying to hold the ship together.
Oh man, have you used the Looptimus controller with Ableton?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. I've used it for a while now, and it's been a lifesaver.
Yeah, it's good. Especially if you're using arrangement view and you can, assign every one of those buttons to a different section of a song.
To a different section, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we've used that at church and also out, doing things with and national conferences and stuff like that. Being able to jump between sections and arrange our way through.
Yeah.
We know how things work within our church, but we get to another church, we're like, no, that's not going to work. We're going to need to do a short of this. We're going to need to do that. And basically having the Looptimus ready to kind of program all those changes onto. Yeah. And like
that's
sturdy. It's such a win.
Well, you know that there's only one in the world and we actually built it for you. So you've got the unique Looptimus.
What?
No, I'm
kidding.
Serious? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm like,
No, but it's cool though to hear you say that because we built it exactly for that, for worship leaders to be able to do that. So, well,
it's great as an MD role because then you can kind of control where everything is going.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Well,
dude, thanks,
brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. You're awesome, man. You're honestly just really fun to talk to too. So hopefully we'll get to meet in person one of these days.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's my favorite thing in the world, just to hang out and chat with people. And
is there anywhere you'd want people to maybe check out? Do you have a website or stuff on iTunes, or do you want to point people to?
Yeah, actually, there's a just something on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. There's a project that I put out called the Sleep Project by David Andrew, and it's kind of, so I did all those Hillsong lullabies that you may or may not have heard about, or the Hillsong Selah sessions, or whatever we branded them as at the moment. But I also did this piece, which was like a 40-minute through composition that's meant to be like some sleep, some rest, it's kind of my trying to put some rest out into this chaotic world. So I've got a project out there called the Sleep Project, which you can check out on Spotify, which I really like. I don't know if anyone else does, but I really believe in this thing just as the gift that we have as musicians. David doing what he did and being able to calm the tormenting spirits of Saul. That's kind of what I've wanted to do with this project. So if you want to check that out, I mean, that's the most legit thing that I've got out there, I guess.
I love it. And, I'm going to check that out. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you guys, Loop Community, check out that project on Spotify, iTunes. Also, check out Hillsong. If you haven't heard of Hillsong, then maybe you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. You need to close it right now and find Hillsong. I'm sure everybody's heard of Hillsong. But, man, thanks so much. And thanks for what you're doing just for the church and making a huge impact. And I know you're also helping a ton of people on, like, Facebook forums, I'm sure in other places, but I've seen you so active in just helping, local church musicians with their stuff via the internet and Facebook. And so thanks for your ministry in that.
Yeah, man. No, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
It's awesome. All right, brother. Well, I'll let you get back to your day and
get some coffee.
Yeah, get some coffee. Thanks for talking.
My pleasure.
Yep.
Have a good one.
See ya. One, 2, 3. Mailbag! All right, the email lines are open for the mailbag segment of our podcast.
Yes.
If you have a question about anything, life, worship, music, just shoot us an email to podcast@loopcommunity.com. Our first question comes in from Fayette from Gainesville, Florida.
Fayette.
I guess. Maybe Fayette from Gainesville, Florida asks, what are the differences between the Ableton Live and Prime?
Oh, love this question.
That's a good question. I guess I'll take it.
Okay.
Ableton Live they both are really great pieces of software to use in live performance to run tracks. Ableton Live is a little bit more advanced. Ableton was created for musicians who are recording their own music, for DJs. You can do basically everything in Ableton Live. If you can think of it, you probably can have Ableton Live do that. Have it trigger your lighting and trigger your lyrics, and you can do a lot of custom editing and recording and making your own tracks. The reason we invented Prime was because Ableton has a learning curve to it. It can be, since it's more advanced, it can take longer to learn how to use it. And so we thought, you know what? Let's make a very easy version of Ableton. We'll give you we'll make an app where it gives you all the features you need to run tracks in worship without all of the extra bells and whistles. So really it's just like it gives you what you need to run tracks, and that's what Prime is for. So I would say that the differences are they're both great for running tracks, but if you're going to be getting way advanced and like recording your own stuff, then you're going to want to use Ableton. But if you're just running tracks and you need to customize arrangements and change key and tempo and stuff, Prime is all you'll need.
Right. Both are really great. One's free and the other one costs.
That's a big difference.
A big difference. That's a pretty big thing.
And the platform is different.
Yeah. And if you have an iPhone or an iPad, but you don't have like a computer per se, like you do, you just have like a mobile device, that Prime would be a great option too. So.
Right. Question from Roger in Columbus. He says, the leadership of our church have recently requested that every time I lead worship, I need to wear a collared shirt with jeans.
Yeah.
Or other pants.
That was
I'm
me.
not sure what that means. Do any of you have a dress code or requirements for what to wear when you lead worship? Whoa. That's an interesting one.
I lead in a tuxedo every single weekend.
Right. And it always looks very classy.
Right.
I know that when I first started leading worship at a church in Chicago, when I first started going there, they actually were like, you need to wear khaki pants or dress pants and a smart shirt or a collared shirt. And I didn't even know what a smart shirt was. I was like,
shirt.
I emailed them and I'm like, what is a smart shirt? I'm not smart enough to know what a smart shirt is.
That sounds like a really cool piece of technology that I don't own yet.
I know. It basically meant, I know. Right. It's, it basically means a shirt with a collar on it. And
Okay.
I remember being like, what in the world? Because I didn't even own khaki pants and I didn't even own a collared shirt. I mean, I was so used to just wearing,
Your flowered Hawaiian shirt.
my flower Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, exactly.
Flip-flops,
Yeah, just jeans and a t-shirt. Now it's funny because since then that church has completely loosened up and there's guys wearing hats on stage and V-necks. I remember one time I actually got in trouble for wearing a V-neck leading worship there.
Whoa.
But now since then it's totally different. People are super cool and totally fine with that. No one's getting in trouble for V-necks.
You're right.
What about you, Jansen? What was your background with that?
I actually grew up pretty conservative, so I was not in a tuxedo, not James Bond worship, but I was, wearing a suit, for different types of things. I come from, a pretty conservative background where it's like more orchestra and choir driven. So it's like very, in the deep South, it's like just how things kind of are. But, I think the rule of the thumb is, whatever church you're at, you need to work together with your ministry team. So like if they have this set of standards for your team and this is how you guys present yourself, then you need to go along with that. And if, you're looking for a specific position as a worship leader or something, and you're looking for churches to apply to, you might want to look into that and see is there fundamentals and beliefs about what they do and how they dress and stuff. Is that kind of, match what you're looking for?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's worth pushing back and fighting on that one. You kind of want to respect your environment, respect the culture.
Yeah.
Kind of just like when you go to a funeral and everyone knows proper attire for a funeral or proper attire for a wedding.
Yep.
I do think that just certain cultures, maybe different parts of the United States or different church denominations or, they're used to a certain thing. And I think it's not worth, when I'm a guest worship leader somewhere, I'm totally fine with just wearing a t-shirt, but I want to also respect, the people that I'm leading and the place that invited me to come lead. Right. And so it's one of those battles that I think is not worth fighting.
Yeah. I mean, always err on the side of being more conservative in your dress. Like there's always a time and a place where you can wear holy jeans or shorts and t-shirts and stuff. Yeah. Nothing's wrong with that. But, in certain environments you may just want to respect if you're not certain.
Right.
Yeah. Love it. What is the best interface to use with Prime in order to utilize multiple outputs? This is a great question. So we actually have had we've had a lot of testing actually since we've come out with multiple outputs on Prime, and there has been a lot of buzz about this on forums and Facebook, just different types of things talking about what works and what doesn't. So I'll just run through a couple of really great ones. One that we've used for a while now is comes from a company called iConnectivity, and the specific interface is called the iConnect Audio 4 Plus. It's a mouthful. And basically all it is like a 4 input and a 6 output interface. And what's great about this one is that it has a host peripheral port. So you can actually, if you own like a keyboard or a Looptimus pedal, you can plug this thing right in. It'll power the pedal. It'll also accept the MIDI from that controller. And it also has MIDI in, MIDI out, 5-pin MIDI in, 5-pin MIDI out.
And it powers your iPad.
Right. So, and you can actually plug in your iPad and a computer as well. So there's a lot to really do here. It's touch screen on the front. So, and that's kind of one that's very popular to use. I know that some other ones are the Presonus has an audio box, and that's, I think, 2 in and 4 outputs. And the biggest thing with these is, you want to go with a brand that you like, but the biggest element is whether or not it's iOS compatible. If it's not iOS compatible, then you're going to have problems. So you need to contact the manufacturer to see, look on the website, see if it's iOS compatible. If so, go ahead.
That's good.
Yeah.
Those are all good options. Our last mailbag question. Did you hear what I just said? Mailbag?
Mailbag. That was a little Southern accent.
Our last mailbag question is from Will in Kansas City. He emailed us and asked, the larger churches in our area are paying their musicians to play on Sunday morning. My volunteers have started asking me about it, but our church can't afford it. What should I do?
Oh man, I'll go ahead and take debate on this one. So I have played and led at a lot of churches in the last, 15, 20 years. And I think more and more churches find themselves in this position where, we have to have a building that we're working on. We have to have, all these instrumentalists. We have to have technology, and the budget just gets larger and larger for these things, right? So
Right.
It's one of these things where, in my experience, there are less churches, there are fewer churches than most that are actually paying their volunteers.
Right.
Right. So it's not for churches to just pay volunteers that come in and just help out as with the band and stuff. They're not normally making money doing this. And if they are, it's a very small amount.
Right.
I think there are some churches, especially the bigger ones, that will, provide
Yeah.
whatever funds for the volunteers that they can, but it's not a normal or regular thing for a lot of churches, especially smaller ones that are on tighter budgets. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, okay. So I think it's such a sad question to me because I do see that it is a problem. I think I've actually even been in the shoes of this guy where maybe, you're at a smaller church plant, you don't have any money. I mean, you're barely even getting paid.
Yeah.
If you are getting paid at all.
Right.
And then the big church down the road who has tons of money, the mega church, starts, picking off your musicians and saying, hey, why are you playing at that church where they're paying you nothing? Why don't you come play at our church? We'll pay you, $200 every Sunday. And what's really sad about that is that I think that mentality grows musicians to view playing worship music as just a job.
Yeah.
And they're not connecting into a church community.
Right.
So you're actually pulling people out of a smaller church, which, let's just say that you're basically pulling them out of their church community, like their friends, their family, whoever's there at the church. And now they're just going to this other church to play, to get paid. And they're just clocking in, clocking out, but they have no investment in that church other than their paycheck that they're getting to play.
Right.
And I think I really feel for this guy because I think that is a really rough position to be in, where maybe you're losing musicians because the church down the road is picking them off.
That's not what this whole thing is about.
Yeah,
You know what
right.
I mean? We're not here to make a buck. We're here to help connect people with the heart of Jesus, and that's what we want to do.
Right.
And so, if you find yourself in that ground, don't be offended by that. Don't be offended by people leaving or wanting to go make money or something
Right.
at this church or whatever. Don't take offense to that, but use it as an opportunity to kind of build into more people because where that guy may want to, you may have a guitar player or a keyboard player that leaves your ministry to go play somewhere else. There's another person ready to not make anything and step up.
Exactly.
And that's a perfect opportunity for you to train and teach them and
Yep.
give them an opportunity to serve. And usually those people have a way more open heart and they're willing to serve. And so
I think also there's different forms of currency. It doesn't have to just be money. So for this guy who's asking this question, his guys are maybe threatening to leave because they're getting paid down the street. I think, before that even situation arises, I think he can, maybe he can't pay them money to play, but he can pay them in relationship.
Yeah.
And, there's different forms of currency. There's time and relationship. And I think, really just loving your volunteers well.
Yeah.
People will be loyal. And even a $200 paycheck at the church down the street isn't going to maybe pull them from your church.
Right. Every once in a while, you can get them like a Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I would take that.
It's a good question. Hey, if you guys have any questions at all, send them in to podcast@loopcommunity.com.
This is Community Talk. Man, he's so funny, isn't he?
Oh, he's great.
He, I love his sense of life and how he doesn't take things too seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes I think there are musicians that I know of that they get so kind of involved in what they're doing that they forget how to enjoy the moment, enjoy life, and enjoy what they get to do.
Yeah.
And that reflects, I think, a lot in their music too. So, what are some things that stuck out to you as far as what he was talking about?
Yeah, one of the big things is I came from a small church growing up, so to hear all that goes into like a Hillsong size service with the music producer, creative producers, that was really interesting to learn about, and something that I haven't really experienced in my time at church, but it's just a different culture with a huge church like Hillsong.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I've been a part of several different churches, and when you have a church of that size, or even churches like with multiple campuses and different types of services, and there's a lot more roles that open up, and it can be intimidating on who's doing what and how that even is supposed to look. And so for him to have a little bit of knowledge on both sides of the spectrum is really good. I also thought that just the culture of who he is and what he has to do from Hillsong. I think, most of us would be safe to say that, like, when you talk about Hillsong is like a very widely known, probably the most popular of all Christian music.
Right.
And they carry this like gold member status, where it's like if something comes from them or if they create a new project, it's like one of the first things that people want to hear. They want to see like, oh, what's new on this album? What's going on? And there's a lot of hype with that. And as a result, those people that are a part of that group, I feel like someone like David Andrew has a lot of like weight on him to like always be producing the next big thing.
Yeah, he talked about how it can be daunting at times just to work for Hillsong. He said as soon as they release an album, people ask when the next one's coming out. And like there's no break just to produce the next best song. But he said he trusts God a lot with that and said when there's a good song, it'll rise. And that was really cool to hear.
Yeah, he did. That was a really interesting point. Just talking about like he doesn't focus on making a hit. He focuses on like let me be a creative musician, and I'm confident in what the Lord has given me, and I'm confident in what I've worked at and practiced at to become, and I'm just going to let that kind of shine through, and the Lord's just going to use it however He wants. And so I think that is really great. I love just how he mentioned, I'm not going to focus on this genre of music, like. I'm not just a worship artist, you know what I mean? Like I'm a musician, I'm a creative, and that you see that reflected also. It's not just that he serves with Hillsong, but he has like that other band that he's with.
Yeah, the wedding gigs.
Yeah. So he does these different things where he's allowed to have even more creativity and just kind of let that shine through what he does. So I mean, what else? Is there anything else that you thought that was pretty interesting, stood out?
I loved hearing him talk about how Looptimus is a lifesaver. That was pretty awesome. And how he's getting into tracks a little bit and realizes that we're going towards tracks in a lot of ways and towards Ableton. So he decided to break out of his comfort zone and do that, even though he feels late to the party.
Right. It's pretty amazing. Like to hear that from someone who's with Hillsong lets you know that there's a lot of people out there in a lot of churches who have zero clue about this whole world of tracks and hardware and software and how to even start using that stuff. I mean, I remember getting involved with Ableton Live and some of these other music software programs, and I've only been using them for maybe 3 years tops, and there's still so much to learn. So I feel like, don't be afraid of, the mountain that it looks like it is, because a lot of times you just go into it and you find YouTube training videos or resources like us from Loop Community or something like that. It'll teach you a lot, and you can really progress fast if you're really hungry and passionate to want to learn those things. And that's what I respected about him too, is that he said, he kind of felt late to the game, like he said,
right?
But he didn't just like say, well, I can't do this. Like he said, no, I'm going to learn this. Like I may be behind, but I got to learn this in order to go take my stuff to the next level and be that kind of person that I want to be.
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. So David Andrew is such a great guy, like we were saying. And if you have a chance, guys, I know a lot of the times we don't really mention this, but these artists need prayer all the time. They're on the road a lot. They have so many things that they're juggling. And so if you can just think about it, some of the artists that we have been interviewing and some of the people that are in the music industry, just pray for them, and just pray for their lives and all the normal things that we don't get to see because they are these artists and big industry people. But they need the Lord's help and direction just like the rest of us. And so I know that he would love that. And be sure to just support them. I know that a lot of you guys listen to Hillsong. You play Hillsong in your churches. And just think about maybe that keys part or something is something that David Andrew even came up with. You never know. It's likely. So we love what he's doing with Hillsong. We love Hillsong's music, and we're just fully supportive of what they're doing. And always, we love to hear that artists are using the Looptimus and using Loop Community as a resource. So, guys, that's it for this episode with David Andrew. And we hope that you guys tune into us next time. If you have any questions, just email us at info@loopcommunity.com, and we'll see you for the next podcast episode. If you like this, go ahead and subscribe to this podcast. That way you can kind of keep these rolling as they come out. And again, my name is Jansen.
And this is Derek.
And we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Loop Community Podcast. You still haven't subscribed yet? Go ahead and click that button.